I'm Sohaila from WeddingWire, and we have the entire panel here. So, welcome to Wedding Industry Online Summit 4.0. We have a great expert panel coming in from Mumbai and Pune, and we're going to be discussing weddings post COVID 19. So, since the global pandemic, COVID 19 has hit us early in March this year, weddings, like many other segments, have had a huge impact in India. With the lockdown extensions and some relief in restrictions, couples are finding the best ways possible to still have the special day of their life. And now we're seeing that there is a big trend coming in terms of mini monies, which is making mini ceremony, wherein the big fact wedding used to be like a grand ceremony that people used to celebrate. There are more intimate weddings happening during these restrictions, and we are also here to discuss how will weddings be like when the lockdown and restrictions are over. So I welcome our panelists and all the participants here. To start with, I would like to introduce Ankur Saraugi from the WeddingWire team. He's the country manager in India. And he will be telling us what is it that he's hearing from across the world and what are the customers thinking.
Great. Thank you, Sohaila. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ankur Saraugi, country manager at WeddingWire India. We are part of the Knot worldwide. It's a wedding technology company, and we have market-leading positions in 15 countries, including the US, UK, Canada, Spain, Italy, and France. And we have been in India for the last 3 years, primarily focusing on North India market. We recently launched, in Mumbai almost 6 to 12 months back, and we continue to strengthen our position. Now, what we have done over the last few months across the world and in India as well, spent a lot of time, talking to wedding professionals, venue owners, couples who are getting married, and we have been like trying to figure out what is happening in the industry. There is a common theme that we are hearing that weddings are not getting cancelled. There is a demand shift. Unlike, other categories or industries like, which may be like, a vacation or something like, traveling, the plans are not getting canceled, they're getting shifted. There is definitely a lot of, immediate pain in with our partners in terms of cash flows, because we don't see any bookings or confirmations happening, during this time. But we expect, a lot of things to improve as countries are getting out of their lockdowns. Now, this is like, a small summary of like a survey that we did in India, to couples who were supposed to get married during the lockdown window. And this was done in, mid-April. So some of this data might be like, might have changed, but like, so people who are getting married during the lockdown, which is say from the Janta curfew till, I would say till June end, 80% of them are planning to shift their wedding, to the October, November, December month, which most of you guys might have already heard also. Only 3% of them are planning to, shift it in 2021. Now, the remaining 20% who actually got married during this lockdown window, maybe at home or in court or in temples, or, 2/3 of them are still planning to do an event, to celebrate it with friends and family. So they will continue to do most of the celebration, but, they have done the wedding ceremony already. 90% of them have maintained during our, interaction that they have not thought about reducing their budgets in terms of like, what they planned and, whether that would change or not. However, like, post our survey, we have seen a lot of like, job losses and, there has been a lot of dynamics in terms of the consumer sentiment. So there might be some impact in terms of budget. But like 90% of them still said and 75% of the, the survey respondents actually mentioned they're not thinking of trimming, the guest list. Now with the restrictions, what we believe what's going to happen is either there will be, different guests across different events. So in a Mehendi event, there will be a certain set of guests who might not come for the wedding event. Or what people would do is they might just, if there is still some restriction in terms of guests that you invite, they might just do like a shift, like, from 7 to 8, these guests are coming. It seems hard, but this is how people are planning. It's very, very hard to very hard for people to actually cut down their guest list. Like, this is first-hand information. This response was with over 600 couples who were planning to get married. Now, finally, we see a tremendous opportunity for technology to help customers and wedding professionals in enabling wedding businesses. There is a huge surge in adoption of digital platforms across key decision makers, parents, family members. All of them have, started consuming a lot of digital content during the lockdown window. A lot of wedding professionals have gone online. They are upskilling themselves, and also investing a lot in creating stronger digital presence with new content, customer reviews, and setting up for the new world. So what we see there is definitely, as in most of the categories, a lot of digitalization of weddings are going to happen. But yeah, these are our findings. Now, recently, in our last 1 week, we also started looking at structurally what is going to happen for the rest of the year in terms of weddings. And this is one data that we almost know, that in India, weddings take like almost 3 to 6 months to plan. That is the hottest, planning window. And that happens post, in North India, we call it a roka ceremony, but you can assume it's like, an engagement when the boy and the girl's family meet and they say yes to a wedding. From that date to actual wedding date is like a 6-month window. What we believe is like fewer weddings are going to happen this year because this ceremony of meeting the parents is not happening during the lockdown window. So for 3 months, and maybe the first movement that people do out of their home would be to meet their immediate family members or friends before they actually, boy and girl, the normal wedding routine starts. So there might be fewer weddings that are going to happen in the calendar year that was projected. However, like a lot of weddings that was supposed to happen during the lockdown might shift, with some restrictions to get over. So what it means is, as soon as there is some positive news around COVID, there will be a huge surge in demand in terms of, what is expected with respect to weddings. And the current window which is like, I would say, no roka ceremony kind of window that has happened over from the Janta curfew till most likely June end or July end, there will be very few roka ceremonies. So that thing will shift into winters, and maybe early next year till April, there might be a huge surge in terms of weddings that are going to happen. So yeah, that's our findings. We'd love to hear what you guys are listening and how are you preparing yourself, in terms of COVID. Thank you, Sohaila.
Okay. So picking up from there, when you mentioned, October, November, December is going to be a very, it's anyway a very hot season for weddings in India. How are venues planning to, pick this up, and how prepared are they for this? Jimmy, can we have your inputs here? How, you guys are preparing for making sure that all weddings are actually given same kind of importance that are happening at venues?
It's a fact that hospitality industry is going to go through a sea change. All of us are in a state of disarray. We are doing knee-jerk reactions, trying to guesstimate what's coming and what's going to be thrown at us. Whether the weddings, the numbers, what is the government going to allow? Is it going to be a crowd of 50 people? Is it going to be a crowd of 100? We do not know. Most of the hospitality industry people have got only one wedding venue or two. We are fortunate that we have a couple of venues where we can do smaller batch lots of 50 people weddings. But there are too many ifs and buts attached in this whole thing. It's so dynamic. And during the wedding, what happens if there are 1 or 2 cases and next day you have a second wedding? Do you allow to go in for a lockdown? If you go in for a lockdown, the way the municipal corporations are doing a knee-jerk reaction today, what will happen to the next day's wedding? So there are too many ifs and buts, and it's very, very dynamic situation right now. The industry doesn't have answers to all of them. We, like everybody else, is going into a reboot and getting into extremely aggressive digital campaign and trying to evaluate our strategies. What is it that we can do to fill up this gap that's going to be caused in the revenue? And how do we make sure my job as a leader is to make sure that I secure as many jobs as I can. In spite of everything, till now we've not sacked a single person. Yes, we have been making our list, but we don't have the heart to do it right now. And we are still hoping that the government will announce a package. There will be a one-time restructure package, and it will open up whether we'll be able to get into business as far as Lonavala is concerned. First week of July, we don't know. Whether mid of June, end of June, we don't know. But in spite of all these things being there, harsh reality is people who have to get married are going to get married come what may. Yes, numbers are going to dwindle drastically. Commercially, the industry is not united. How are we going to handle it? Are we going to start charging for the venue cost, which we were not doing so far, because the crowds used to be 600-700 people or 1,000 people at the wedding, and hence the venues didn't have a charge? How are we going to respond to all those things? How will the buffets look? Yes, we've all planned and we've all had our strategies into trying to make sure that everybody stays safe, healthy, and it's visually available to for our guests to see.
Would you want to share some of those strategies or procedures that you've planned?
I can share it, but there are a lot of new generation products that are available across wherein you do not need to get into sanitization on a daily basis. The efficacy of the sanitization materials that will be used will be good enough for 45 days to 90 days, depending on the product. There are two products we are using right now. We are working on one is a US based product and one is a Swiss product. And every other company, their R&D department is working on these products. Some of them are misnomer marking it as a nanotechnology product, but there's no nanotechnology into this. It's a simple. Aegis is the name of the company that I keep forgetting, and Living Guard. These are the two products that we are working on. But Aegis is still not certified against corona. So it's certified against most bacteria and viruses. We can draw a parallel. It'll work against corona, but there is no lab certification. So like I said, there are too many dynamics. The hospitality industry has gone berserk into trying to portray and project that, yes, we are a safe place and we'll do social distance and we'll do this and we'll do that. But really, at the heart of it, it is all going to be a trial and run process, no matter which brand. I've been studying brands very, very closely. Some industry friends within the brand and some of the largest brands. It's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. If tomorrow morning there's a case that happens in a brand, what's going to be the next in line? How many days of lockdown? Is it all rooms or is it only room on that floor? Only that floor will be locked down. Guidelines are not available right now. And most important for hospitality industry, I think even before any of this, the government package is not announced. Industry has got a tenga in their hands. And unless and until that is not done, we are discussing about weddings, but 40% of the hotels, my guesstimation, will not open its doors. 50% of the restaurants won't open their doors. So I'll leave you with that.
Hello.
Yeah, over to you.
I'm so sorry. I think there was some disconnect that happened.
No, I think we were able to hear, Sohaila. You can continue.
Okay, great. All right. So thank you, Jimmy, for pointing these things out. I would want to, when we're talking about the 50 people weddings and intimate weddings that are happening, Ritu, can you tell us as to what kind of information that you're getting from couples? How are they saying that will they be able to manage, calling all the guests within, keeping this 50 bar in mind? And how are wedding planners also managing this?
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Ritu Jain from Bombay, the WeddingWire. So I am having a mixed reaction of all my couples, actually. To be very honest, we are having three types of couple. We have divided them into three categories. One are the ones who actually want to shift their weddings to 2021 June. And they are actually doing that. They are like, we still want to do a big fat Indian wedding. With a lot of ifs and buts, they have left us literally in a question mark that, okay, how many people they are going to call, what is exactly going to happen, how the venues are going to be, reacting to this situation. So for this particular situation, this one category of couple, we have, told them that, okay, fine, we will get back to you at the end of the year. That is about December 2020. The other category of couple that I am having right now is basically who want to do their Roka ceremony online using the digital platform. Obviously, we are arranging Zoom video calls with everybody together, and there is a Roka ceremony which actually happened over Zoom. So this actually happened, and I was surprised. I was like, okay, this is what we are learning, right? The questions start flooding in, like how are these 50 people going to manage? Because the first question is, when you are calling a guest of 50 people, that means about 25 people will be the guests and about 25 people will be from the wedding team, from the photographers to the planners to the hotel staff, etc. So this gets very tricky for us to answer, because once I'm looking at, say, for us, the hotel comes up to us and tells us that, Ritu, we are going to have our 20 people coming forward and making sure that the sanitization process is, fine, etc. So here is one tricky bit that we are dealing with right now for the weddings, which we are seeing in June, July, which will probably happen next year. It's not going to be a problem. The third category of people are the people who have shifted their weddings to October, November, and December, assuming that the things will be normal. Right? The things will get back to, say, about 100 people will be allowed. It's all ifs and buts. It is all, again, a situation where everybody is like, okay, if this happens. So the majority of the people are like, okay, yeah, be the optimistic person that you are. And let's go ahead and, plan for October, November, December. So as Jimmy rightly said, when we are over here sitting down, we are portraying that everything is amazing and we are safe. But for planners, it is very important now to make sure that everything is safe. The first question that people ask me when they are hiring me or they are talking to me or consulting with me is like, how are you going to make sure that the vendors that you're getting are safe? How are you going to make sure that the venues are safe? How are you going to make sure that the guests who are coming in are safe? So there are a lot of questions that have been asked to a planner now. As a planner, we do not tell people that, okay, 100% guarantee on having safe vendors around. This is not possible. So we have come up quickly with 3 or 4 things that we always advise the guests, and this is how we and us at the WeddingWire are going to, take care of it. Is one, the important thing that we're introducing is when we do RSVP callings for all the guests, we obviously will ask them that, how is your health? Are you having any symptoms, etc. This is going to be one. And as we used to ask for Aadhaar card and your licenses copies, etc., to submit to the hotels, we are going to ask them to submit their fitness certificates, which is also going to be received by us through WhatsApp. This is the phase 1 of ensuring that, okay, we might say about 50% of the guests can be safe, not be safe, etc. The second process comes is, okay, this is like a change of hampers, Suddenly the hampers is going to have masks and sanitizers and everything else that is going to be required for the whole event. The third thing is, as soon as you enter the venue, you remember in the weddings you used to have mist fans. Okay, this is a very vague idea that we have come up with. We used to have mist fans. So we have come up with an idea where we'll be having like a booth. It's going to be a self-sanitization booth. Our team is still doing the R&D on the same, that every time a person is entering the venue, they're sanitizing themselves, and it's still in the research and development process. So this is the third thing that we have come up with. The fourth is obviously to, check the temperatures, give them gloves, and every event should have something really fun around giving them the masks and gloves, etc. And the last thing is, this is an additional thing that we have added is, once your guests get back to their homes safely, we also give them a call and be like, are you fine? Is everything okay? And do you have any symptoms anymore? So this is the way we are dealing it. We're trying to keep up with the humor. And we're trying to act like, okay, this is the new normal and this is how the planners are supposed to deal with it. As a planner, there is one more challenge that, again, Jimmy already said that the guests are, confused with, okay, 50 people wedding and a venue. There are not a lot of venues in Mumbai or around Mumbai that offer multiple venues to have multiple weddings. So, as the rush is going to begin, which I am being very positive, it is going to be a wine shop situation. People are going to, as soon as the government is going to be like, okay, you know what, let's give about people to start getting them married. People are going to rush and be like, okay, let's get married. And there is going to be a rush of inquiries and a lot of questions that are going to be asked to the planners is like, how do we manage? So the one thing that I have come up with, we probably, if I am doing a wedding at Della, and there are about 50 or 100 people like that I have 3 people who are interested, 3 families who are interested in doing a wedding nearby to the property. I am suggesting them to go ahead with one property probably figuring out how each one of them gets a separate venue with the full sanitization, etc. That is something which we still have to speak to a lot of hotel people, and the hospitality industries are themselves coming up with something like this. So yeah, this is how we are dealing with, and this is how we're dealing with all the questions from couple. And yes, love is not getting cancelled. We're telling everybody it's just getting postponed, and it is fine if it is getting postponed. It cannot get cancelled. It is a wedding industry in India. In Mumbai, it gets difficult to get married at your own houses, because considering that nobody has the leverage of owning huge bungalows and lawns over here. So majority of the people end up living in a flat. And when you consider living in a flat, there are a lot of restrictions that people are coming ahead with, that you have to take permissions from the secretary, the sanitization in the house has to be taken care of. If anything happens, then the person is responsible for it. So these are the challenges that people in Mumbai are facing actually right now. So that is the reason people are going to go ahead with smaller weddings, and hopefully it will be when, as soon as we come up with a plan, at the end of July, when government is letting us know how many people are you finally allowed to do that.
Great. These are some great points, Ritu, that you've pointed out. So picking things from there, I would want Akshay to answer this for us, that how are five-star hotels going to cater to these intimate weddings? And we're talking about a venue supposed to have multiple places where these smaller functions, events can happen. How is, say, a Taj dealing with such things, and what are the kind of SOPs that you guys have come up with?
So, see, to start with, there are multiple SOPs that you need to work with. One is you'll actually have to, as a hotel, one have to see the internal processes. Are they in place? They have to be in all places. We have to take care of our stakeholders and ensure that they are safe and are following the safe practices. For example, any of the vendors who work with us who are going to coming in, the idea is for them, where are they coming from? What's the background? What are they ensuring at their own spaces? It's actually like doing, contracting for a food item. I mean, you need to know from the end shop where and how it is going to start with. With regards to guests, primarily yes, I think it will start from the contracting point itself. At this point, the way we are discussing, the way we are receiving queries, we're only getting things to know which is post November, December. As rightly said by the colleagues itself, people are actually moving out for the next year and and coming from January and February to check how is it and what is the feasibility of the number of people that will come in. While the clarity is not there from the government, what can we start with, right or not? I know a lot of people who actually got married online. I know a family who's the couple is staying outside the country. They've got married. The parents are here in Bombay. They've got, everything is done virtually. For the five-star hotels, the virtual weddings and partnering with the team, partnering with teams who are going to ensure or organize these is going to be the next in altogether. What we also look at is probably from a catering point of view, less is more is now going to be most important. While we want to have most of the usage of large decors and good large buffets, multiple light stations, that will now become more restrictive. We will rather uh, emphasize more on what is our strength internally to execute on infrastructure, to execute on catering part altogether. But at the same time, yes, the hotels actually have the leverage of giving everything under one roof. So the one-stop shop remains the biggest factor, which will actually help us getting more people. The trust that they place in the group, the trust that you would place in a hotel is much more that way. So that's primarily one. And at any point, the first thing is going to do with for a hotel to open up is to release how we are going to take care of you, how we assure you as a guest, or anybody coming to even attending, a simple wedding or a function at the hotel. With regards to organizing, the last thing which comes to set up and organizing it, it will have to be very careful in terms of not rather having satellite bars, smaller buffet setups, spread out buffets altogether. How are we going to do the replenishments? How is it that we are going to serve individual dishes to back areas inspections? A lot of people will actually be quite sentimental about how is the food being catered to at the back, what is it that the hotel is doing at the back, when the food is coming to you in front to come in with. So these are certain factors that we'll have to be very careful with. What we are looking at is starting slow and slow, taking things slowly and slowly. For example, taking example of our hotel with a 13,000 square feet space that we have. I think I would not at this point be confident of more than catering to about 200 to 250 people, whilst I would have done about 700 people altogether. So setups, seating styles, theaters, clusters, Sajan goats, or the family meals which are being served on the tables as per the norms that we follow as Indian society. Multiple functions during a single event. How are they going to be catered to? Turnarounds of a hotel. That's something which is going to become very tricky. And as Jimmy rightly said, earlier that most of the where the hotels were going to create larger spaces to accommodate more guests, now you'll actually have to think how to utilize those spaces for lesser numbers. So a stronger coordination between, and actually a very strong coordination between the hotels, wedding planners, and the guests, that will be more, which will be more emphasizing. And I believe with lesser number of events which may happen, while business development is a different plan altogether, you can actually create wonders with a joint team of the wedding planners and the hotels. So yeah.
Okay. So picking on your point from, less is more, Harsh, would you want to give us some detail where, how do you see the whole catering, at weddings being laid out? Is it going to be same as buffet system, or, do you expect a change to be there?
Right. So, hi guys, I'm Chef Harsh Shodhan from the Gourmet Kitchen and Studio. And Indians love to eat. They rather live to eat, right? Weddings are impossible without food. Nobody remembers what the bride wore, but they'll all remember ki ye chaat kahan se aaya tha, Lucknow ka chaat tha, we enjoyed that. And I can see a lot of people smiling. One good thing that's going to happen with this situation is there going to be no buffet lines, right? People hate standing in lines at a buffet. A lot of people say, oh, we didn't bother eating because there were huge lines. So that's the positive. The negative is, of course, lesser revenues for all of us, and that's the horrible part. But I guess now everything is going to come under a scanner, which I'm surprised why wasn't it done already as far as hygiene factor is concerned. It had to be done as far as the back end part, right from cooking preparation right up to serving. Sometimes you go to a wedding and the person serving you the food himself looks so unhygienic, you don't feel like touching that food. So these things will all go out of the window now. The unorganized sector of the catering industry, there'll be a kind of a purge where all this will be like now washed up, cleaned up, right from the people prepping the food at the back end, the chefs, the assistant, the sous chefs, the patissiers, bakers, etc. All will be under scanner. What kind of ingredients are we using? How are we prepping it up? How are we preparing the food? Right up to the person at the counters and the servers, all will be under scanners, under deep investigation from the health checks to what they're doing at that point. I think now the emphasis will go into minute detailing, because if you're having a 50 people wedding, each item, each bit of presentation, each flavor is going to be under the scanner, right? If there are 1,000 people and there are 50 dishes, things get lost. Nobody bothers about the minute details. But in a 50 people wedding, everything is going to be looked down upon. So from the planners to the caterers, everybody will have to pull up their socks and ensure that we are performing at our top level, at our top line, So newer ideas will come into play. Buffets and contact like not food at a wedding and expect people to pick up a box, however fancy the box may be, and enjoy that. That's just not possible. So there will be various methods of how we're going to change the buffet. There will be more interactive sessions where guests themselves will get into prepping the food, probably creating the dish themselves with less contact from the chefs or the waiters. There will be more live counters, of course. Sajan Goat, however, Akshay mentioned Sajan Goat, but there itself, the manpower requirement for Sajan Goat is very, very high, right? Even sit downs. I'm a big fan of sit down dinners where every course comes to you individually prepared and, course by course. But imagine if you're doing a 7-course meal for 50 people, you need one waiter for every 2 people. That means 25 waiters. Look at the amount of contact you'll be having. So all these things will have to be now rethought of. Can we do these things? Is it possible with the number of people? I would love to do, sit-down buffets, but sit-down Sajan Goats and pre-plated dinners, but it all depends on the number of people. Secondly, I would love to now bring out grazing stations. That's the new trend that's coming up, where there are lots of food being laid out on the table and people walk around and pick and eat what they want to. So there's less contact from waiters and outside staff. They only come and replenish food and then it's all done on the table. So it's like a buffet, but very, very less contact. Also flying buffets where food is already prepped, in individual containers, and waiters come out and just pick up the food, and it's all in mono portions. So it becomes easier for you to pick up a salad or a main course or a khao soi or a Thai curry rice, which is already pre-prepped and made for you. You can't take away the contact, unfortunately. The human aspect you can't take away. We don't want McDonald's, right, where a burger is made in a remote factory and frozen and then prepped. We still want fresh food. Indians love hot food. You can't take that away from the Indian, right? So there will be, but a lot of checking, lot of checks, lot of health checks. And food is going to always remain an integral part of any wedding. We have Zoom parties going on where there are about 20-30 families. 20-30 families getting together on Zoom, and I'm sending food to 20-30 places, the same food, right? A portion of cake going to all the houses along with an entire meal, and they all get in front of Zoom and they eat together. That's what's going to happen now, where events will become on Zoom. Right, guys?
Okay. So picking from here, I saw that Abhishek from Jodi Clickers, they actually did an intimate wedding on 18th May, if I'm not wrong. So Abhishek, would you want to share your experience from there and how the entire event went like?
Hello, everyone. Probably I was lucky to have a wedding during this time just to experience exactly how it is like. So it all started with, speaking to the bride, and we had multiple calls in regards to, just building that confidence that as a team, we're going to come prepared. And it was more so telling out of your mind that you're going to be prepared. You don't know exactly what to do. Probably just wear a mask or a shield and gloves and all of it. And also, you don't know how they are going to react when they see you. So, of course, we got up early and we went for the shoot with everything, all the gears intact. Entering the house, the first thing the bride's father tells us, okay, please remove that mask and wear our mask. So, they are extremely particular. They want to make sure whoever is coming in is, more protected, of course. And once you're actually there inside, as a vendor, I feel you are kind of trying to do all the shoot and also making sure that you're taking care from a hygiene point of view, making sure that there's, you're not touching anything. So the conscious level is so high that somewhere you're kind of, losing that creativity part of it. But at the end of the day, when you experience a 12-hour session at a home, shooting, family and all the people that are important there, the photos expressions come out real, compared to a 1,000 people wedding where there's so many things happening around. I don't know if I should say there's a lot of pretense also there. Here, everything is real, right? Anything that you shoot is completely real. what you're getting, what you see is what you get on your camera. You don't have to work hard towards getting it. But talking about, what is this 50 people or under 50 people wedding is, see, at the end of the day, as wedding photographers and filmers, our focus is always this 50 or 100 people. Our focus is never 1,000 people, right? We are always focusing on the important family members or the best friends as such. So from an execution point of view, it does not change much for us. But in fact, it gets a little simpler because you can just see everyone, whoever is important. But overall, I feel from wedding photography industry, I don't see a lot of things changing. I thought the prices would go down. I thought that, a lot of, inquiries will fall. Fortunately, I've been getting calls every day in regards to this. The only difference is, of course, you downsize your team. There's a smaller team working. Each member is multitasking. So before, one photographer would be handling a single camera or one filmer would be handling a single camera. Now they're operating 2 to 3 cameras in itself, positioning it in different locations and making sure that it's operated, either through a Bluetooth, or you making sure that, you can easily maneuver those 3 cameras and making sure you get enough footage so that you can go back to the studio and edit them. So that way, I think what we as a team have tried to do is decentralize the entire aspect of, shooting weddings, because our entire team comprises of everyone from different parts of the country, right? Because of the lockdown, everyone's gone back. And places where they have gone, I've started to kind of concentrate on those cities. So I have a team in Kolkata, I have a team in Delhi. So to avoid any such travels happening, we are giving that confidence to the client that, our people are there in your city to cover your event. So, and anyways, you need a smaller team to shoot such events. So, overall, for us, not much has changed in terms of, shooting. But of course, we also would want to go back to that number of 500, 600 guests. It always feels good to see the celebration to another scale. But I think I would take it as the warmth that you get of a home wedding or a small scale wedding is unparalleled. We have a office in London. Most of the weddings there are below 100. So we already have experienced that that warmth is very different to 1,000 people wedding. So I think all positive from my side. I am getting calls. I am trying to work ways around it. I'm trying to make sure that, brides are closing deal with us in different cities. So I look forward to everyone kind of coming together and making this happen.
Absolutely. Great point there. So everyone definitely has to come together to make, the dream wedding happen for the couple. Now, talking about brides, when we talk about makeup, which is very, very, absolutely essential for them. Aarti, what do you feel with, mask becoming a mandatory thing that everyone has to follow? How is that going to change the makeup game?
I'm Shivasu. Can I speak something?
Sorry, Srivastav, can you please just put down your questions in the chat box and we'll take it up from there? Thank you.
Sohela, you need to unmute Aarti, I think.
Let me check. Yes, Aarti, sorry, go ahead.
It is going to change very drastically because with the mandatory that you have to wear masks, I think for brides now, it is another thing that they can, design with their outfits. Since that becomes mandatory, then, it changes the whole game of makeup. It's not so much about, what lipstick do I do? Or, it changes into different aspects. So it's more about your eye makeup. It's more about hair. It's more about your whole outfit, like it's always been, but then with small changes because of the mask. I have been getting a lot of feedback from brides, brides who are planning their weddings later in the year. They have very similar questions, like what will you do? But we have to be safe. They have to be safe. Seeing that the dynamics of makeup to change also because it's a profession where we're very close you cannot avoid when you're doing makeup. So for us, as makeup artists, our level of sanitization, our level of making sure that we are safe is very, very high because of the close proximity to clients. I feel like the love for makeup, the want to do hair and makeup for your wedding, that is not changing. I think whether you do a small wedding, whether you do whether it's a virtual wedding, I think that experience of getting ready for your wedding, that I feel every woman wants to feel. So keep.
Ati, are you still there? Probably, I think there is some issue. We should have Aarti back soon. Moving on, Manali, what are the kind of SOPs that you from, someone from Orchid Hotels that you guys are currently discussing around, and you have come up with for tackling weddings during lockdown and also catering to intimate and smaller mini ceremonies?
Thank you, Sohaila, for having me here. Hi, everybody. I handle marketing communications for the Orchid Hotel Pune as well as for Fort Zadavgarh. So when it comes to Orchid Hotel, we have around 6 to 8 venues wherein there are small weddings can happen, and as well as we have two big lawns wherein there are 1,000 people wedding can also happen. So as of now, what we are getting queries for November, December, and people are postponing their weddings currently, and mostly they're planning to have 200 and 300 people weddings, whether it is corona or there is no corona right now. And when it comes to, we are still awaiting for government guidelines that how many people we can have, and as per what kind of decorations that bride or groom want to have and the families want to have, how many guests there would be. So there are still we are in bit of confusion, we can say that we are still awaiting for the government guidelines. And also there are we are planning to have, actually we have started, we are the hotel, we have been selected by the government for a quarantine from, we are starting our hotel operations tomorrow. So mostly what we have done right now, that we have sanitized everything. We are sanitizing right from the handles, the food that comes from the kitchen or from the vendor as well, how the vendor is working, what is the contracting with the vendor and everything, and what is his history. Also we are taking care of where the food is coming from which part of Maharashtra or India the food is coming from. Then we are also having the standard operating practices where the buffet will be laid down, how much social distance we need to maintain over there as well, and lot many other things that we are planning to do. So right now we are getting queries for the next year. Lot of weddings that were supposed to happen in the month of May at Orchid and as well as at Fort Zadar has been shifted to November. So what trend that we seeing that people are postponing the weddings, they are not cancelling the weddings, and we have refunded the advance money as well that we received from them. But they plan to have bigger ceremonies. Still being an Indian public, they want to have bigger ceremonies and nicer ceremonies with the family and friends that we can see.
Okay, all right. So these are some great points that you shared, Manali. Thank you so much. Moving back to Jimmy, how when we were talking about preparedness, are the current venues that you have at Della, are there any procedures in place to cater to these smaller weddings, and also keeping in mind that social distancing and getting all the local logistics also in place? How are you tackling that?
It's the same set of precautions that the whole industry is sticking to, from an ozonized water tunnel. But again, efficacy is not known. We are working with UV lights. Again, UV lights are not stable as far as guaranteed against the virus for baggage scanning. So each of these areas right now, sodium hypochlorite in a diluted version of 1% is highly corrosive, but that's what we are going to be predominantly using throughout. Once you enter, there cannot be a contactless working in a luxury resort at any point in time. You can't take away the human element. You can't ask for a ready check-in. That whole effect is going to be lost. And I think every single touch point, there will be changes that you will see, but they're small cosmetic changes. One change that will be evident in all washrooms, you will start having European-style pedal-operated flushes, or you will go in for a sensor-operated flush within the toilet areas. Most of the public areas either ways have sensor faucets, so that problem is being sorted out and taken care of. Sanitization, again, all kinds of products will be thrown in the market. There are no certifications right now, so we can go ahead with branded companies and see what they are coming up with and rely upon them. But to what extent it will work out, it remains to be seen. I've been looking at videos from brands and laughing my head off with my team, not because of ridiculing anybody, but it's just a joke that you can't expect a person to work 8 hours a day with rubber gloves. Rubber gloves are not breathable. You can't work. Even in the kitchen, chef is agreeing with me. You can't. Yes, you will show it in the video, but how much of it is doable? And we can say yes, a wedding with a face mask, but it's a very funny situation to have a bride sitting there during fairas with a face mask. I mean, these are hard ground realities. We are all talking about it. Unfortunately, the hospitality industry, my gut feeling is going to scare the daylights out of the guests if they overdo this. Yes, everybody needs to make a safe environment. That's okay. Everybody is aware about Corona. It's no longer February or March we are talking about. Now we've all graduated from the WhatsApp universities of the world, and we are now qualified to understand Corona. Each one is a bigger doctor than the other. Do you want to scare your guests? Do you want the guests to feel as if it's an ICU they're entering? I mean, I've seen hotels which have given not only a face mask but an entire shield. I don't know to what extent. All this is going to either fade out in a useless world, or it's going to be put to use and you're going to scare guests and ruin the hospitality industry, whatever scope or ray of hope it has to survive. I love Chef's suggestion that yes, sit-down dinners are a solution. You can maintain social distancing, may not be 6 feet, but you can do tables of 4 feet at least away or something like that. And number of people serving would increase, but back end. So you can have one set of people who are doing service inside and the rest of the logistics is outside. Yes, that's a very doable solution. Chef, I really compliment you because that's a step in a positive direction rather than scaring people away and talking only negative. Because what do we need to do as an industry together is to promote people, make them feel comfortable, and it's a way of life. Like how now baggage scanning is a way of life. One point in time, if suddenly your bag was scanned, your heartbeat would raise, thinking there's something in your bag. But that was 15 years back. Post 9/11, post 26/11, everything has changed. Now it's okay. Your baggage is being scanned. That's normal. No woman would take objection entering Taj Chef at Santa Cruz if her handbag is being checked physically by a lady security guard. Imagine this was being done 10 years back. She would have bloody thrown a fit. So it's an acceptance of the current norms. People are, memories are short-lived and they are willing to accept these changes. A lot of these changes, people are talking about leaving the room vacant for 72 hours. I mean, what madness are they talking? The industry is bleeding. They can't survive. Leaving a room 72 hours empty during peak days, they must be joking. So all these brands putting up these brand videos, which are absolutely senseless, made by some baboons who are into marketing. I don't endorse it. I don't recommend it, and I don't suggest it. I think it's high time they get realistic and not scare people away from your resorts or your hotels or your restaurants. Over to you.
Okay, good. Definitely good points made there. And I'm sure all of us are in learning phase where, we are also trying and testing out things, what is going to work, what is going to help consumers build that faith in, all the wedding professions that are out there in the market. Picking from here, I would want to ask Ankur that how important has, go digital become nowadays?
Yeah, so I think, like any other industry, our platform is like a marketplace where we would want to service, put a lot of content on our platform. So, and we have seen like platform like ours generally take around 10 to 12 years to actually mature. So if you look at Zomato, it started in 2017, 2007 became big in 2015. And that has been the trend, especially in classified kind of stories. Now, one big lever for us specifically right now is a lot of our consumers, their initial behavior was to go and meet, so for example, I remember when I got married in 2012, I went to this area in Delhi called Chhatarpur, and we rated every venue, "Arey, isme bhi dekh ke aa jate hain, kya ho raha hai? Let's see this venue also." So this whole footfall driven story, to find a venue or to find, say, even I remember shopping for lehenga and groomwear, that footfall driven story will reduce because now people are scared. They only want to go out when there is an outcome they can achieve. I think thankfully, a lot of photographers and makeup artists do actually use a lot of digital platforms already. They actually, talk on phone and then set up an appointment and meet in person. But a lot of other categories were very footfall heavy, so a lot of times, I think a lot of our partners are already doing it. There is a need to upskill. There is a lot of importance of having a strong digital presence, have a lot of content, have a lot of reviews. There might be a possibility of doing a show around of a venue through a WhatsApp call. Because people will not see 10 venues before finalizing a one. They might just want to see 2 venues and finalize, the one. So it's going to shorten the cycle. Hopefully there will be a great consumer experience because no one wants to do so much shaky, and it will become the norm in the long run. So I think for us specifically, and for any other digital platform, we are looking at it very optimistically. This is going to enable a lot of digitalization in the wedding technology space as well.
Okay, great. Ankur, thank you so much for adding those points. I would now like to begin taking some questions from the chat here. So Rishi says that do weddings around 400 to 500 people look remotely possible in the November to February phase? Akshay, would you want to add a point here?
Sure. So, see, as of now, we don't have a clarity from the government. What's the numbers? Till then, they don't go ahead with it. We unfortunately, even if we want to do something, we're kind of restricted altogether. But I believe the moment, as Ritu rightly said, it's actually the moment you open up, the moment things will open up, people will just hold outside, in line with booking the places, booking the dates, because our Indian market is driven by dates. And unfortunately, how much ever you want to relax it, it's the truth. Yes, people will look around ways to get dates over the weekends. Hotels will come up with offerings of different rates and different dates. We will try to definitely accommodate as much as is possible. But again, it's all about acceptance, right? So as as Jim rightly said again, it's all about acceptance of you also as a guest. Will I go to somebody who's going to expect 500 more people around me? And as a host, will I be able to, or would I want to, host or get 500 people under a single roof altogether or not? What I think will play most important role is the venues that you select, how you design it. Maybe between the 3 different events, you identify and differentiate people who would want to come for a haldi, sangeet, or a mehndi, or a wedding altogether, or a reception. We still do it. Any wedding an average wedding in Mumbai is 800, 900 people altogether. You still differentiate. You have 400 people for Sangeet who are more of your friends, who would rather be more interested in enjoying, having drinks all together. You would have about 150, 200 for the wedding, and reception becomes a more celebrated affair in terms of number of people. Now, I think it will differentiate between how you define the people. You'll have to, as a guest, talk to, and you will actually want to have lesser numbers and still call everybody you want to spread across 2, 3 events. But I believe it will still go on. I think by December, January, we should be able to cater to a larger group than only 50 altogether for now.
Okay, all right. So then the next question goes on, wherein Danveer is asking permissions required for home weddings vis-a-vis an outdoor wedding, and from where do we procure permissions, and what are the safety measures that one needs to ensure for the guests? So, Ritu, do you have points to add here?
Yes, I think I'm audible. So
Yes.
the question is again about the permission. So this is the thing that we've been also working on. It is actually going to be a normal situation wherein initially we were supposed to procure PPL, IPRS and NOVEX. So it is going to be a similar situation wherein the planners are going to be required to procure proper permissions as soon as the government announces certain kind of rules and regulations which are going to be running for at least 6 months down the line, and it is not going to be just a very temporary solution. So as soon as the lockdown is lifted and we have the government's rules and regulations in hand, we definitely will be having these kind of certification that will be required, the licenses that will be required. In fact, I was just in talks with NOVEX and IPRS and PPL. So all of these together are coming up with a situation along with the government that what licenses will be required and how will we be taking care of that particular scenario over there. And see, to procure permissions, a wedding planner is going to be definitely helping you out how to do it. But other than that, I'm sure there will be a lot of information digitally on platforms like WeddingWire and other social media platforms and how to go about the new age, the new normal situation of getting married. So I'm sure that a lot of information will be out again with platforms like yours. And the next question is, how can we resume safely after the lockdown is lifted? Yes, as I already mentioned a couple of pointers initially, that how do we do it safely? Definitely, it is going to be a team effort with the hospitalization industries, the chefs, the photographers, the makeup artists. Everybody together have to come up with a solution of doing this safe weddings after lockdown. It is not going to be one person's job. It is not going to be possible to do it alone. Everybody together has to come up and help each other. This is how it is going to be managed. Is there anything that I missed? And
since Abhishek has actually, these were the questions actually which were asked. I will get back to you. So Abhishek, since you attended one of the weddings during lockdown, were there any safety measures that you had to procure or get in place before actually entering the home, and what was the entire procedure like?
No, so it was a purely virtual thing. So we actually had about on the other side where the groom and the bride were, there were about 10 people in the house, plus a priest, and the other members were based within the country through a Zoom call. I mean, it actually was the first virtual wedding of that I actually attended or I saw. So that was good. But it's the only precaution that they took.
Okay.
Everybody who came from both bride and the groom's side, they had to be more precautious about who's coming where. The idea was not to call somebody who's not been in around.
Okay. And Abhishek, do you have a point to add in terms of any safety? I'm sure you would have taken safety measures to get inside the house and to make sure that everything falls in place and you're able to get closer to the bride and groom and the family. Were there any prerequisites that were asked from the family side to you?
Not really. In fact, we ourselves work as a team trying to think in terms of what exactly we should do to make sure that, the couple feels safe. So when it comes to, we are wearing the mask 24/7, like it was 12 hours at a stretch that we were wearing the mask, we were wearing, the eye protector. So the whole idea was, since they were all family members together, so they were actually not protecting themselves as much. So us as an outsider, we had to make sure that, they feel that, we have come with all the gears possible. Also, other things, I would also advise all photographers, filmers to do is doing things in front of them makes a lot of sense, because that builds a lot of confidence. So whether you take out a new mask or a new set of gloves, or you sanitize your equipment, sanitize your hand before entering, all these things need to be seen to build that trust. So when that happens and you enter, you're already in a safe place where they will interact with you with a more open heart. Otherwise, they'll always try to be little, careful of you, cautious of you. So as the event progressed, I could see that comfort get in, because when you're doing a bride getting ready shots, there is situation where you have to be, comparatively a little closer to get some shots, because of course Bombay weddings, all the houses are comparatively small. So we try to avoid specific lenses, because as a creative person, you tend to react to a particular lens. So for example, if you're using a 16-35, you want to go up close and personal to get a shot. So it was instructed to my team that there won't be any use of 16-35. We are going to focus on 35 or a 50 mm or an 85 mm lens, so that the lens itself creates that distance, right? So that's where creatively we don't have to think about maintaining the distance, because the equipment makes you do so. You have to take 3 steps back to get a better shot out of that lens. So these kind of things we kind of put together to make sure that we maintain that social distance, gain confidence of the client, yet get good photographs. We use the terrace for the couple shoot. That was pretty interesting. And we kind of timed it in such a way that we could get the sunset at the backdrop. So, getting those photos, because most of the time when we are going to, really these locations, which, amazing view, we are always searching for sunset. So when you actually go up to the terrace and you are experiencing a beautiful sunset, getting a silhouette shot of the couple is as good. So, I feel that entire experience of shooting a wedding at home was, I was really happy about it. It was challenging, tiring, but when you come back home, you suddenly sense, because for the past 2 months you've not been shooting, and suddenly you get to shoot, you're like, jitna shoot karna hai kar lo. So you're extremely excited. But in the long run, wearing mask, as someone rightly pointed out, like Jimmy said, that you can't be wearing gloves all the time, you can't be wearing a mask all the time. So at least there has to be some comfort that needs to be created. And I'm sure wedding planners would have figured a lot of things out. Ritu has explained a lot of different aspects that they'll probably be looking at. And somewhere, as Jimmy said, that people do know now that we are in middle of something, and people are educated. They know how to deal with it. They themselves will take 300% more precaution than what you are actually thinking as a vendor. So I think overall we are looking at something where everyone is saying you have to live with it. I think live with it happily, right? You can always just be careful and then go about with your life. And I'm sure weddings is here to stay. India equals to wedding. Everyone looks at India for weddings. And I see a huge surge in terms of the number of weddings happening in the coming months. I think there's going to be a huge shift between the demand and supply. This next 100 days probably would be a little, slow down for all the vendors. But after that, I think we need to gear up for the massive, wall or thing coming on top of us. So we need to prepare hard for that.
Great. Thank you so much for so much positivity, Abhishek. And I think it's a great note to now end the entire, this webinar. There were some great questions put out in the chat. I'm so sorry that we were not able to ask. We'll definitely take cues from here and make sure that we put out some kind of information for all of our users and our vendor partners on our website. I would like to thank everyone who's joined in today, from the expert panel and the participants here. The bottom line here that we've come up with is that if consumers and vendor partners, we all stick together and make sure that we are in this together. Eventually, do not look at canceling weddings, but rather postponing or shifting the weddings into maybe currently like mini monis. We're talking about ceremony, a mini ceremony. We will definitely get back on our feet very, very soon. And how WeddingWire says that love is not cancelled, it is just postponed. And now not even that anymore, with restrictions being lifted up. We are definitely seeing a rise in weddings all over again, and we will come back stronger. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Stay safe.